Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar of The Show Must Go On, Integrated Ways to Power the Customer Lifecycle. Welcome to the game plan for retaining customers during these difficult times. Before we begin, we wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. The bottom of your screen has multiple application widgets you can use. All the widgets are resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around and get the most out of your desktop space. If you have any questions during this webcast, you can submit them through the Q&A widget. We will try to answer them after the session, but if a more detailed answer is needed or if we run out of time, we will follow up with an answer later via email. Or potentially even in a blog post. So a copy of today's slide deck and additional help materials are available in our resource list at the bottom. I encourage you to download any resources or links that you might find useful. And the last thing, we do have a poll for you, so please choose which charity you would like to donate to, and Sendoso will send you an e-gift following the session to donate to the charity of your choice. Great, so this is game plan for customer retention during uncertain times. And we have two speakers, myself, Allison Tiscornia, I'm with Sendoso, and Abby Hammer. Abby, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Great. Thank you so much, Allie. I am the Chief Customer Officer and Head of Product at ChurnZero. I'm really excited to be here today to talk to another CS leader about, how to be effective with customers during this time. Feels a little bit like trying to build a plane while it's already in the air. So it feels nice to talk to other people about this.
Absolutely. I think that that is the exact same analogy that I used the other day with my team. So thank you for that. So as we are thinking about this, there are three different principles really that I've been thinking about. How do you retain customers right now? Everything that was in the rule book before is probably still somewhat applicable, but it's a little different, right? And so to me, it's really about three different things. I've come up with three kind of core principles. It's really around optionality, appreciation, and connection, driving that connection. And so those are the three kind of topics we're going to talk about today. The first one being optionality. So last time we talked, Abby, we talked about this concept of optionality and the fact that now more than ever, customers need to know from their CSMs and from their customer success teams that there are a plethora of different things that we can do to work with them during this situation and to help them. Talk to me a little bit about what you think around optionality and how you want to prepare your CSMs to have those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start by saying that, when you and I sort of did some preparatory conversations about today and you were able to label these three categories, I was really excited because it was all the same things I've been thinking about. I just hadn't as succinctly, come up with sort of names for them. So I love that. Around optionality, I think it starts with really deciding there's a variety of different ways that we might work with customers in this time. And while we might want to be extremely generous with every single customer, we also are still a business ourselves who hopefully wants to exist on the other side of this. So, making sure you have the right balance and that you're meeting customers where they're at as well. So one of the first things we did here at ChurnZero, and that we've also, recommended to our customers, was we tried to get creative about how we understood what our customers needed without even having to ask them. I think we can talk a bit about the importance of asking customers. I think the phrase, what do you need? What can we do is more powerful right now than it's ever been, quite frankly. But I think for us, it allowed us to get a head start, get a game plan in place, sort of understand the different buckets and varieties we might be dealing with, because we were able to really leverage what we know about our customers, leverage our own data to create these, COVID-19 personas, if you will, to understand, hey, if you look this way and behave this way, we believe you're in this sort of a space and are going to need these sorts of options from us. So we can be proactive about anticipating that, communicating with you about that, versus someone who maybe isn't as impacted or is impacted in a different way than some of our customers. So, for us, it was a really important exercise to go through and say, when we think about customer health, how does that change during this time? What are the factors that are more critical during this time that might have not been as critical beforehand? Even simple things like, usually how close you are to renewal isn't necessarily an indication of health. Right now, it very much could be. The closer you are to making a decision, especially when it's in the height of all this uncertainty, that's a riskier decision point. So for us, it was about understanding how behavior might change, how engagement might change, what your impact might be from the industry side, so that we could come into the situation with our own, strong understandings of where we thought you were at, so we could start those conversations on a good foot.
I thought that was a really powerful comment that you made the other day when we were talking about this idea of first segmenting your customer base into industries, right? And almost delivering like a point system to, okay, who do we know out of the gate is going to be most impacted? Everybody will be impacted by COVID-19, but there are certain industries, potentially travel and hospitality, who will be critically impacted by that, right? And knowing that before you even begin to have conversations with your customers, I think is extremely important. So I think that is a critical piece of optionality. One of the things that I thought was important for my team is I wanted to empower our frontline staff, our CSMs, with being able to have in their back pocket different options for customers, whether it be different features that we could offer them, whether it be potentially different billing terms, whether it be different discount strategies. And I wanted to make sure that they had those options already in front of them so that they didn't have to feel like every conversation was, oh, wait, let me take that, up for It's like they knew off the bat exactly which discussions and which offers they could give to their customers.
Which is so smart, for a couple of different reasons. One, it allows you to give that immediate relief to a customer. Hey, I think I need X. Great. You know what? I actually already know I can give you X, as opposed to, drawing it out. Even if it's over the course of a couple of emails or a couple of phone calls, it's still drawing out that anxiety for the customer when maybe you don't need to. But I also think it's important because, I'd say I've had to be more creative about how I approach problems in the last 3 weeks than I've ever had to be before. And creativity doesn't happen in a snap, so if you have time to sit down and say, okay, we think we've got customers who look a certain way, behaving a certain way, how do we creatively solve their problems? How do we balance what we need as a business and what they need, as our customer, as our partner, so you can come up with solutions that really sort of try to strike that right balance as possible. I will say that's been, I don't know if you feel the same, Allie, but that's been one of the most challenging things for me, is making sure that, if we all had our way, we'd get everything we could to our customers right now, but that's not the reality. So that balance has been a challenge. Yeah. And I've already had to have very open and honest conversations with customers, and knowing that they're struggling and I want to do the best for them, but being able to come to them from the perspective of, we're both businesses. We both need to exist in this when we come out the other end. Right. And I found that approaching the conversation that way with people, they respect it, they get it, and they're much more willing to work with us. I think the interesting thing you said, though, about really having to be creative and trying to be creative before you even go into the conversation with the customer, for me, and having a customer conversation yesterday, it was really interesting. The problem that they were trying to solve 3 weeks ago is not the problem that they're trying to solve today. Wildly different now.
So, 3 weeks ago, it was all about lead generation, right? And now they're like, we understand that Q2 is going to be a different revenue strategy for us. And right now it's all about protecting our base, protecting our customer.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is an important instinct right now. Like we're all going to experience a slowdown on sales. So, as CS people, this is our first like super intense test as an industry, as a sort of budding function in a lot of companies. This is our first moment to say like, hey, a CS team that's successful right now, that's going to be the difference between a business who comes out the other side of this in good shape and maybe one that struggles a bit more. I think on that creativity front, what's been really helpful to me, and I'm sure the same things happen for you, Allie, is asking questions. I mean, that's just sort of a core thing we have to be good at when we work with customers in general, but I think it's just so extra important right now because the emotions are high. We've run into customers saying like, well, I need to do X. I need to do something very extreme, like flat out cancel or, because they're seeing that as the one option and they're trying to get to a place that feels like it solved their problem as quickly as possible. And it's been really critical as you get to those criticals, to those creative solutions to say, well, okay, well, why are you asking for that? Like, what's your biggest need? Is it, short-term cash flow? Is it, a longer term, the fear around a longer term commitment with all this uncertainty? What exactly are your biggest worries? Because then that helps us construct the right, the right response to you. So it's been a lot with my CSMs also trying to coach them to not panic when they get those. Panic's too strong of a word. they're a solid group, but to not have that naturally emotional reaction when someone comes at you with something very extreme. So has your team been experiencing the same?
My team has been experiencing the same. That's why I felt like I wanted to arm them with some of these options. And even when these options have not, necessarily been able to land on the first call, my advice to them has been like, you know what, take a pause. And let's come back and let's problem solve as a leadership team with the CSM, and maybe we can come up with different options. I think it's hugely important to make sure you don't panic on the call and commit to something that maybe never on, right? It just take a moment, seek advice from their teammates, seek advice from their leadership, and seek advice from us, right, as executives to be able to back and have different conversations. And sometimes maybe it requires us getting on the phone and having a conversation executive to executive. Absolutely.
Because I think, there's a lot that a CSM might be able to accomplish in terms of making sure a customer feels like we hear you, we see you, we understand what the situation is. I may not be able to give you the immediate answer today, but I'm going to get you connected to someone who can help. Exactly. And even that's a really helpful first thing. I did have one customer I thought did something smart. They're a group that, they're a very high velocity team. As much as they're trying to talk to every single one of their customers, they just can't do as much hand-to-hand combat. So they put in their email signatures, they at the bottom said like, are you being affected by COVID-19? Tell us how. And it went to a very short survey where a customer got to say like, okay, what's been the impact to your business? Like, what are your chief concerns? What do you need from us? Like asking some of those questions in advance. And it's surprising, I have to say when they first told me they were going to do this, I was like, I wonder how many people actually fill that out. They're getting a great amount of engagement from that. Customers seem to be responding really well to just like, I just need to be able to express what's important to me right now.
I am stealing in that idea because I think that's brilliant. I really do. I love the fact that, and I think that's another thing that customers, what I've seen are customers are really willing to engage with us to problem solve right now. And the fact that they're willing to engage with us and they're willing to actually creatively problem solve kind of leads me to my next bucket of things that I think are really important. And that's around appreciation. I think now more than ever, we need to be so thankful for our customers, and we need to give them opportunities. We need to show them love, and we need to be able to find different opportunities to create those moments of differentiation. I know we always talk about moments of delight in customer success, but I think also it's important to have moments of differentiation, like, wow, this is a brand that's really been thoughtful about who we are as a business. They understand what we're going through right now. And I think one of the ways that we can do that, right, it's very simple. It doesn't always have to be the big send, even though Sendoso, we encourage sending all the time, but I think there are other creative ways that you can do that to reach out to your customers and let them know that they are meaningful to us, right? I mean, writing a handwritten note to your customer that you have a really good relationship. Asking customers how they're doing. I had a conversation with somebody on my team who they were having a call with their champion, and their champion said, "Oh, wait a second. Sorry, I have to go take care of my my significant other. They actually have COVID-19 right now." And it was one of those moments where they took a step back and said, "You know what? We should probably reschedule this call. We don't need to talk right now. We need to make sure that your significant other is being taken care of." And the customer was really appreciative of that. They were really appreciative of that. And they were like, "No, it's actually helpful to be talking about something else right now. The person is doing
understand
well."
that.
So, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
They needed actually that moment to just be able to continue with business as usual. So I thought it's that element of just being able to appreciate the moment that we're in, appreciate what our customers are going through, and let them know, how much we want to continue the relationship with them.
Yeah, that's really
about.
Yeah, well, there's something so important about that just from a human perspective. Like, most of us, there are some older folks in our generation who have been through, Spanish flu and all these other things. But most of us have not lived through a pandemic. So there is something very common denominator about what's happening right now. And I think it empowers both the giving and receiving of appreciation in a way that I haven't experienced as much professionally. It feels more real. It feels more important. It feels more critical. I also think, if we put on our business hats, it's actually pretty mission critical to the business as well. When we think about, hey, who are the customers that are most likely to survive this with us and be still our customers on the other side? It's those champions. It's those people where we should really be focusing that appreciation. Not that I'm advocating that we don't fight hard for customers who are maybe not in as good of a spot, but if someone was already at risk before this, they're just a super risk now. They're just, that's a really steep hill you've got in front of you. But your champions, that's your best chance for survival. So how do you, even from a business perspective, say, all right, well, I'm going to invest in those people, invest in making them feel appreciated and supported, because that's my best bet to make sure I have a customer on the other side. Even if I take, temporary contractions, or if I give away months or features for free, whatever sorts of compromises we need to make to get through the scenario, that feels like a legit partnership that maybe, when things are back to normal, you may even be able to get a little bit of a repay or, a benefit on the flip side. It just feels like those champions are the heart of what's going to keep your core business alive through this time.
And I think it also, I completely agree with you. And I think this idea of, protecting the base and protecting your champions, and also finding ways that you can highlight their success stories, right? I mean, not just with your product, but also just being able to sing their praises, what their business is doing, figuring out creative ways to help them and promote them as well. I think our customers would appreciate that at a time like this.
Yeah, positivity is extra special and precious, right now. And I think, that goes very much into, appreciation-based communication and acknowledgement. One thing that you brought up, Allie, that I also thought was so important, our first thought is, how do we appreciate our customers? How do we appreciate our champions? But you brought up the importance of appreciation around your customer success team as well. We are the front lines right now on this, and we're watching relationships and success that we've painstakingly built up, get hit by things that we just can't control. And that's challenging. That's really challenging. So I'm curious how you guys have sort of tried to keep the morale high and keep the positivity focused forward.
Well, we are a sending company, so that's what we do. We're a sending platform. We love to send people things and create those moments of delight, both for our customers and definitely now for our employees.
Sure.
And what we've done, our HR department has been amazing during this time. Is every week we've been sending our employees something different from the company. And one of the things that has just been a massive hit is we sent out all of our employees and our CSM staff these donut making kits. And it's basically where you frost your own donut, which, some of us thought at the beginning, like, wait, really? You frost your own donut? It has been a hit across the board. We thought it would go over really well with just parents, right? Because it's a great opportunity with folks who have kids to take a minute, have a special project. Anybody who's got kids and trying to work from home and deal with online schooling, right? Any kind of additional projects are always very thoughtful. But I mean, everybody has enjoyed these donuts, and it's been amazing to see, just the momentum that it's created and the the energizing of our team to go out there and take care of customers. And then they go ahead and talk about how you can do creative things like that for your own customers.
For sure. I love that. Again, coming back to the creativity, there's ways we try to keep a morale high when we're all in the office together, and those ways aren't as available to us, right now. One thing that we did that, now by comparison, I'm like, oh, I wish I thought of donuts. But we've even just started a Slack channel where we had a practice that every other week we did something we call Feel Good Fridays. And as a team, we'd pull together every other Friday. We'd all throw out, a handful of things that had happened that was really exciting and cool with customers, in the last 2 weeks. And then we'd post it up in a public channel. Because we wanted not only to share the successes of our customers, but also to, motivate the other teams at our organization. We started doing now just a free-flowing Slack channel. Instead of waiting and having these, sort of pockets of good news every couple of weeks, we've just said, when something good happens, even if it's a small thing, put it in the channel. As much positivity as we can put out, as much as we can remind ourselves that through a lot of the challenges, there are good things happening, that those help to keep spirits high too.
Oh, I love that. I think that's great. Great. Let's talk about this idea of connection, right? Yeah. Connection. We're all striving for connection right now. And I think connection is so important with our customers. And how do we strike that balance of having really value-based conversations with our customers and being able to connect to our customers in a way that makes sense to them? You talked about the fact when we got together about there's so much email going around, right? And what's a good way for and what have you kind of seen some success around how your CSMs are able to connect with their customers in a meaningful way?
Yeah, I think not only on a professional level, but also on a personal level, I made the joke with you that every business I've ever interacted with in the last 10 years, I know how they're handling COVID-19. Just the email has been out of control. So I think, we always, even when we're not dealing with something as unique and big as this, the best rule of thumb with CS is that all your communication should be value-based. One of my biggest pet peeves is a CSM just calling just to check in, no, that's not a good use of anybody's time. Why are you there? What are you bringing to the situation? If you're going to take 1 minute out of their day, what are you adding back into it? I think that's even just 10 times more critical right now. There used to be a little bit of leeway around, maybe fluff sounds so mean. I don't mean it that intensely, but there used to be a little bit of leeway around what you could talk to your customers about. You got to be really on the money right now. If you're talking to them, why are you talking to them specifically? What is the benefit? And I also think keeping things in shorter chunks is useful right now. Don't send a big, long diatribe about things they could be doing. Send them 2 things they could do in 20 minutes. Like what are sort of these chunked out steps that someone can take, because it feels achievable. It feels very actionable. And during a time where we all want to feel like we've got a plan, it helps build on that feeling of having a plan. I also think to the degree, ChurnZero has a little bit easier time of this because of our product, but to the degree that you have other ways to communicate with customers outside of email, I actually think that's a good option. If you've got the ability to pick up the phone right now, more than ever, pick up the phone.
I completely agree with that. If you have already established that relationship with your customer, it is critical to be able to just pick up the phone and call them. I mean, that's one of the things that we talked about when we introduced our address confirmation feature with Sendoso, so that you could actually send things to people at their home address as opposed to nobody's at the office right now. I encouraged all of our CSMs, don't email this to people. If you have the relationship, pick up the phone and talk to them about how critical this would be to them in their sending strategies.
Absolutely. And I think people should also think about how, their product is also a way to talk to people. Now, some groups are going to have actual ways to, send messages in their product, that sort of thing. I understand not everybody does, but, you do own your product. So I've seen customers do things like if you've got an upgrade or downgrade or subscription page, put a message there. If you don't want people just to cancel without talking to you, put a message there that says like struggling with COVID-19, like please talk to us, use your product in the places that you think people might be going and doing as a means to communicate with them as well. And I think, the friction's especially low right there because that's what they're in your product to go do something right now. So how can you line up with whatever their goal is? Yeah. So, I think it's all just got to be really focused around like making sure that your messaging is really on point, and that any maybe automated message you might do, either you as customer success or sales or marketing, any team that's talking to anybody, like do a scan for anything that might feel tone deaf right now. And I think there's so much out there that, in normal times might not be offensive, but in these times can start to sound really, really tone deaf. So I think that's also another really important point is sometimes you can do more by saying nothing if you're going to say the wrong thing, if that made some sense.
Right. We're a company that loves our humor, and it's been really interesting having conversations with sales and marketing about we need to tamp that down right now. Humor is not a good thing right now, and so when we're talking about connecting and communication with our customers, really needs to be focused on the empathy. Really needs to focus, like we talked about earlier, on that problem solving and value, and a little less on things that maybe have worked for your brand in the past. It's on us to think about how we have a different message for our customers.
Absolutely. And it can be a fair amount of work because I'm sure, those messages don't write themselves, but, it's important to make sure that everything you're putting out right now, really more than ever, putting yourself in your customer's shoes. If I was this person in the situation that I believe that they're in based on what they've told me and what I know from my data, how would I perceive this message? Would it truly be something that's worth the 1 minute it's going to take me to read it or do it or whatever it is, and just be extra aggressive about the sniff test on that.
Well, and I know when we talked also, you were thinking about actually leveraging some key phrases and having your CSM start off conversations with certain key phrases so that they were already, once again, armed with something that they could go out the door to their customer with.
Yeah. And it comes back a little bit to your, when you mentioned earlier, like you wanted the CSMs to have things that were already pre-approved that they could talk on. Like a lot of it was just the first things we talked about at the gate is like, all right, what are questions you want to ask? Let's make a list of questions that are good to ask. What are phrases you want to use, to express your genuine understanding, your genuine concern, and your genuine ability to want to work with them. Because we're all trying to figure our way through this. So if there's just some phrases that we see work well, quite frankly, the simplest ones that work well are things like, how can we help? What do you need? We're in this too. We understand. And I like that one in particular, because to your point, that sets the stage of, we do want to help, but we've also got to strike the right balance here. We are also a business trying to survive this. So we've been trying to share those with each other, as well as we've come up with other ones, and if we come up with a creative idea that works on one customer, sharing it so we can use it with another customer as well.
I also like starting out with, how are you doing? How are you doing? How are you coping? Everything going okay? I mean, I think it also just, it brings that connection back of the fact that we're all humans and we're going through a really, really difficult time right now.
For sure.
And it's amazing the response you get. It kind of like, it takes that conversation and it brings it down a little bit from maybe a more serious situation, especially if you're in the middle of a negotiation, right? Just being able to ask that person, that other human on the other side of the video screen, how they're doing.
I think that's an interesting point. Like, I have seen people turn on their video screens more in the last couple of weeks than ever beforehand, which you think would be interesting. Like, even now I'm like, oh gee, I should have checked behind me to like make sure everything's tidy. Like, we're getting these glimpses into each other's personal world, but that's actually helped us a connection as well. We're seeing people's kids and their pets, and so it gives you these other opportunities to just talk to someone like they're a person, because we all are just trying to figure this out.
Absolutely. Well, it looks like we are at time right now. So
it was already 30 minutes.
I know. So this has been a great conversation. Abby and I could talk all day long, actually, on this subject. But if any of you have questions or comments and you'd like to address those to us, we are happy to answer those post this webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks so much for having me. Yeah,
it was great talking to you as always, Abby.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, everybody.